right, so we have Jason Duggan asking, I got an off-the-rack USA kilt casual a while back. Sadly, the only sizes had about... Start that again. Sadly, the only sizes available had the kilt about an inch longer than he would like. Are the bottom of the casual kilts treated in any special way, or would I be safe to just cut off the bottom inch? And then also we have a similar question.
Yeah, we had a late question that came in for the show in the same
from
vein.
Ed Easter. As a short person looking for secondhand and ex-hire kilts, I am finding it hard to source something with less than 23 in length. From a practical viewpoint, what are the disadvantages of having a hem kilt? I assumed it affects the swing, and could there be issues with the pleats? Any other reason why the salvage is better for the wearer?
Sure. I think I will speak for all three kilt makers in the room when I say, please, for the love of God, do not just cut the bottom of your kilt. No, it's not the bottom edge, the selvage edge, even if it's a tuck-in selvage or a tuck-in edge to the bottom of the kilt. It is not treated differently. It's the way that it is woven. So when a piece of cloth is on the loom at the mill in Scotland, basically there's two or three types of looms that are used. One that provides a fringed or lino selvage, which is little fringy bits all around the very bottom of the material. In that instance, it has to be cut off and hemmed up. You would know if your kilt has a hem at the bottom. The second one is a rapier loom. That one actually has a tuck-in at the very bottom, so about a quarter inch, or it could be a half inch up from the bottom of the kilt. The material is actually tucked up, or each individual yarn is tucked back up into the actual weave. And then there's a Dob cross loom, or a loom that gives a traditional selvage. And there's some new high-speed looms that do the same thing, that it's actually just, one piece of yarn that goes back and forth, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. That is the bottom edge of the cloth. If you cut that, it will fray. So do not cut the bottom of a kilt. If it needs to be shortened, there are two ways to shorten it. You can either hem a kilt, or you can cut the kilt down from the top. Now, cutting the kilt down from the top is much, much, much more involved. It's going to be much pricier. It involves taking out basically the entire guts of the upper portion of the kilt, so the lining and the horsehair lining and the stuff like that. You'll have to extend down the bottom of the fell. If you're going to cut down 1 inch off the top, you have to extend the bottom of the fell about an inch. And then you have to put the horsehair canvas lining back in it. You have to put the regular lining back in it, or put the waistband back on. It's a whole process. And you have to move the buttonhole down. You have to move the buckles down. You have to move the straps down on the front apron. Really, there's going to be some reshaping in the front apron. So it's involved. Option B is hemming the bottom of the kilt. So if the kilt is an inch too long, then you have to hem the bottom of the kilt. Are there any problems with only hemming the kilt an inch, though, Mac?
Well, the biggest thing is you're going to have the pleats. Depending on how short your hem is, you always want to have a decent amount, because otherwise it starts belling out. So your pleats are going to hang down, and then they're going to bellow out from there. So you're creating a weird bubble at the bottom, but you want to make sure that is deep enough so that it lays a little flatter. With 1.5 inches, 2 inches is probably more ideal. 1 inch is
a little light.
Yeah, it's getting on that edge of that line.
Yeah. Now, one of the things is when you hem the bottom of a kilt, you want to make sure that you are I would say if you're going to hem the bottom of a kilt, start by on the bottom, let's say 6 inches, using a steam iron and taking out all of the creases of the bottom of all the pleats. And you want to make it a nice flat area at the very bottom. Then you hem up the kilt, 1.5 inches, 2 inches is ideal for hemming. And then you are going to iron the pleats back in. Now, when you iron or press the steam the pleats back in, you're going to put a lot of elbow grease into it. I'm thinking off the top of my head here. You want to make sure that from the outside, you're aligning, you make sure that the pleats are going, very, very straight down, and you're continuing that straight, that's the same line that the upper portion where it's creased is going all the way down to the bottom. And I would do a reasonable press there and potentially use a press cloth. So a press cloth, for those who don't know, is like just a piece of cloth, whether it's a white handkerchief or an old bed sheet or something like that. Something you don't care if you get a little bit of a shine on it. But you're going to put that on the very, very bottom of the kilt and kind of push the iron onto that and put the steam through that and try to work that in, versus applying the iron directly to the cloth, because you're going to be pushing onto it, and where the top of the hem is, it's going to be kind of like a step down in the cloth, and putting a hot iron underneath that kind of step down, it's going to shine the cloth. You're actually going to like burn it a little bit, that it's going to make a shine there. So to avoid that, use a press cloth, because then you're going to put the shine on the actual, the handkerchief or whatever, and not onto the actual wool fabric itself.
Yeah, the other thing you got to be wary of is the lines of the tartan. So if you're hemming it up that little bit, you could have a bold line across that bottom, and if you're not ironing that straight enough, that line is gonna zigzag across the bottom line. So you got to make sure that when you're ironing, that's spot on.
Yeah. A, when you're ironing it, it's spot on. B, when you're hemming it up and sewing it, that it's spot on. Yes, 100% on both of those. And you can either use an invisible blind stitch machine, which we have here. You can use a hand sew technique where you're only picking essentially one thread off the front and you're doing everything through the back. You can do a hard hem and just like top stitch the actual material. You're going to see that from the front of the kilt, so there's better ways to do it. But yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Ian, is there anything else that we've forgotten for hemming a kilt?
I'd say you've covered it all. Mac talked about the Goldilocks zone, and yeah, that covers it. But Jason, oh my God, if you cut an inch off of that kilt, I have a very particular set of skills
that make me a nightmare for people like you.
I will come there. I will find you.
Yes. Do you never, ever, ever cut the bottom of a kilt. It will fray. It's not going to unravel because it's not a knitted fabric. So it's not going to be like you pull one thread and it all goes away. But it will, it's woven, so it will fray a bit over time, and it's just going to look blah. Blah. It's an official term. Indeed. Very good. Hope that helps.
For the love of God,
Do not do it.
cut your kilt.
Don't cut the kilt.
I will kill you, Jason.
Did you just threaten our viewers?
Yes. Somebody's got to.
Fair. You will die.